Hello, and welcome back to the Loco Files. In today's episode, we'll be looking at the GWR, Churchward counties. The Great Western Railway County class was a class of 440 steam locomotive built for express passenger duties. The class was introduced in 1904, with a batch of 10 being built, with 2 subsequent batches being produced in 1906 and 1912, with minor differences. They were designed by George Jackson Churchward, who used standard components to produce a 4-coupled version of his Saint Class 460. The first locomotive, number 3473, County of Middlesex, was built at Swindon Works in May 1904, with the following 9 completed by October of that year. They were initially fitted with parallel-sided copper-capped chimneys, which were soon replaced by tapered cast-iron ones. The second batch of 20 locomotives were built between October and December 1906. This batch had tapered cast-iron chimneys from the start. A third and final batch of 10 were built between December 1911 and February 1912. On these, the footplates had curved drop ends at the cab and front buffer beam. They were also fitted from new with a superheater and a top feed. Chimneys were a larger version of the copper cap style on the first batch. Coupled wheels had independent springing without the compensating beams fitted between the axle boxes on Churchward's 460s. The cylinder block, including the piston valves and smokebox saddle, were constructed from 2 castings of the same pattern. Bolted back to back, each casting contained 1/2 of the saddle. The cab, boiler and coupled wheels were attached to plate frames. The cylinder block was carried on 2 bar frames, bolted to the front end of the plate frames. The piston valves were driven by Stephenson valve gear, and the class was fitted with the standard number 4 boiler. However, one member of the class, number 3805, County Kerry, was fitted with a smaller, standard number 2 boiler between November 1907 and May 1909. They were the last new GWR 440 design, and by far the most modern, with inside frames and outside cylinders. They were designed as part of Churchward's standardisation plan, but were found to have a front end that was too powerful for the wheel arrangement, and sadly all were withdrawn by the early 1930s. They were designed in part for the Hereford to Shrewsbury LNWR line, over which the GWR had running powers, but on which they were expressly forbidden to use 460 locomotives. The 440 counties were, in effect, a shortened GWR 2900 Saint class, providing engines powerful enough for the trains but with the requisite 4 coupled wheels. The key components were all proven, but the combination was somewhat poor, and perhaps the least successful of all Churchward designs. From the outset, they were found to be rough riders, but were otherwise effective locomotives. All other GWR 440s were inside-cylindered, and none had a piston stroke greater than 26 inches, whereas the County had a 30-inch stroke driving a meagre 8-foot 6-inch wheelbase. The County class used the same cylinders and motion as Churchward's 6-coupled locomotives, and required the same mass to counterbalance the reciprocating parts of the motion. However, the weight required had to be divided between 4 driving wheels rather than 6. The heavier balance weights produced a high level of wheel hammer blow. At 6 revolutions per second, the hammer blow was 8 tons, compared to the 3.6 tons of the inside-cylindered City class and the 6.4 tons of the 6-coupled Saint class. The left-hand trailing axle boxes often developed hammering, which was caused by the amount of counterbalancing being used. The class was subject to the 1912 renumbering of GWR 440 locomotives, which saw the Bulldog class gathered together in the series 3300 to 3455, and other types renumbered out of that series. The County class took the numbers 3800 to 3839. We'll now look at the withdrawals of the class, with number 3833, County of Dorset, being the first to be withdrawn in February 1930. By the end of 1933, all had gone, the last survivor being 3834, County of Somerset, withdrawn in November of that year. They were also the basis for the County Tank, or GWR 2221 class design, which was a 442 using the same basic design but with a smaller and lighter boiler, and the tender was replaced with the addition of side tanks, a bunker, and a trailing axle. Sadly, no members of the class were preserved. However, the Great Western Society took the decision to create the next locomotive in the sequence, 3840, County of Montgomery. The project has been handed over to an independent group and will be built at the Gloucestershire and Warwickshire Railway. This locomotive is being built with both new parts and recycled parts from former Barry Scrap Yard locomotives. And a reason why I wanted to cover the counties is I have a model of County of Bedford, 3821 I think that is. Feel free to correct me in the comments. People probably will anyway. But yeah, what do you guys think about the new build project for the Great Western Churchward counties? Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to leave a like, drop a comment in the section below, and if you really enjoyed it and want to see what we're covering next, feel free to subscribe. Thank you, and goodbye.